Hey, what's up guys? This is MacHeads101 here to talk to you about the latest and greatest from Apple. So today was Apple's Monday, March 9th keynote event of 2005, and they discussed three things. They discussed Apple TV, MacBooks, and the Apple Watch. So in this video, I'm going to be covering all three of these topics. The Apple TV was first with the smallest update. Basically, the price dropped from $99 to $69. Not much of an update, but you know, that's $30 cheaper, so who's going to complain? Next was their update to their MacBooks. So now their MacBooks come in both gold, space gray, and silver. And these MacBooks, they're 13.1 millimeters thin, 2 pounds heavy or light, however you want to think about that. And there's a 12-inch Retina display. So this is so these MacBooks, they start at a price of $1,300 or $1,299, and there was a couple updates to them. First off, the new MacBook is, as I said, 13.1 millimeters thin, when the MacBook Air is 43.87 millimeters thin. So I think that even though they did update their MacBook Airs today, they made them a little bit faster, a little bit longer battery. I think that the MacBook is going to replace the MacBook Air as computers continue to get thinner. Now, currently, the MacBook is thinner than the MacBook Air, so I don't know who would go into a store and buy a MacBook Air. But in order to make it thinner, they had to change some things. First off, the keyboard. They redesigned the whole computer around the keyboard, so the width of the computer is exactly pretty much the width of the keyboard. So instead of having the old keyboard system where each key you would press it and then two little things would come down for it to press. Now they have what they call the butterfly system, or the butterfly mechanism, where the entire tactile response works differently. They also updated their trackpad. Their trackpad, instead of one individual part being clickable, the entire trackpad is clickable. And it is actually sensitive to how hard you click it. So Apple is now updating their software for hard or soft clicks to have different responses. Finally, what they did is they made a lot more room for the battery. They did this by taking the entire logic board, essentially all the components of the computer, shrinking it down to be more dense and smaller than any other logic board for a computer that they've made. They completely removed the fan, and they made the logic board so small that essentially the rest of the space inside the computer is for batteries. Now, batteries, unlike any other technology in the last couple years, processors, hard drives, you know, they're not getting smaller, which, you know, it's not great. I wish they were getting smaller. You know, even like Tesla cars, the entire floor of the car is covered in batteries in order to accommodate for people's needs. So the new battery in the computers, the way they work is they actually contoured batteries. So they stack these thin battery sheets on top of each other to match the shape of the unibody enclosure, which is the first Mac to be all metal. They even put the antennas in the hinge. That way the entire computer could be made out of metal. So what else did they do? They removed a port, all the ports except for one. So the charge port is the only port on the computer, but you can also, it's going to be a standard port. It can do HDMI. It can, basically everything will be through the charge port. So this might seem strange at first. I think people are going to need to get used to that, but I'm not against this move. I think that this move makes sense. As technology becomes more and more wireless, I actually think that in the future, computers will have no ports, and even they will charge wirelessly. But for now, while we make the steps to that transition, people with their nice headphones that aren't Bluetooth headphones are going to be kind of upset, because they'll either not be able to use their headphones or need to get some sort of adapter in order to use the headphones through the charging port, which can seem a little bit strange. Moving on. Apple has now updated their MacBook Pros and their MacBook Airs, as I said, to speed up the battery, to speed up the processor and improve battery life performance. So now onto the main event, the watch. So Apple Watch, they wanted to highlight fitness. So they actually had this woman who ran 3 different marathons, and she's preparing for a 4th marathon. She wore it during her marathon runs, and she's actually using it to track her performance. So you can set goals for how much you want to exercise every week. It'll tell you how many calories you burn while you exercise. If you sit down too long, it'll remind you if you set it to stand up, get some exercise. So Apple is really trying to track your fitness. You know, the watch can track your heart rate, all different kinds of things like that. The next thing that Apple really wanted to promote is the apps. So they had a couple of apps that they showed. They didn't really get too much into the apps because before it comes out, only a couple of developers have access to the watch to develop for it. Well, obviously, WatchKit exists, but if you really want to make an app, you got to test on the platform itself. And even the developers that had access to it, they had to go into Apple's headquarters with like no internet and like just use the devices there. So really limited access. But they showed us different apps like Shazam and all these different things. But it seemed like the apps on the watch work the same way as the apps on my watch do, in that if I install an app, I have to do it through my phone and go, and so then there's going to be an icon for the app on my phone. So I don't know how much like I'm gonna like that, but I think that like I think people are gonna get used to it, but at the same time, like I feel like, you know, Apple Watch is now on all iPhones as of 8.2, or as of the latest iOS release, and not everyone has an Apple Watch. Not everyone wants that app on their phone. So especially on phones like on iOS, you can't remove an app from the home screen. So a lot of people are going to be kind of annoyed by that. Apple also talked about the watch faces. You can customize the watch faces a lot, and I'm sure people will be making more and more watch faces that you can download. There are 3 models of the Apple Watch. The Apple Watch Sport, which will start at $349 for the 38 millimeters and $399 for 42 millimeters. Then there's the Apple Watch, just Apple Watch it's called, which will be $550 to $1,100 depending on your configuration. And then there's going to be the Apple Watch Edition, which is going to be a limited edition and start at $10,000 and go all the way to $17,000. Now, I think that Apple is trying to price their watches a little bit high to make them, first off, like elite and like pristine, and second off, that way they can decide the price of the watch market as the watch market develops. You know, if they make the watch $100 and then they update it, but the new technology costs more, they're not going to want to price it at $200 because everyone's going to be like, hey, why'd you bump up the price? So now what they did is they priced it a little bit too high, in my opinion, in order to accommodate for that. One thing that seems strange, in my opinion, is so Apple talked about how nice their bands are, and you know, like for example, some of their Link bands can go up to $500. Even their cheapest bands, their sport bands, are $50. But you know, I think that after these bands are replaceable. So first off, like even though the sport watch can only come with the sport bands, you can put on any band you want. So I don't know why anyone would buy the higher model watches just if they only want the band. And second off, even Apple's like nicest bands, I bet you like as soon as they come out, like counterfeit ones that look almost exactly the same will be made for like less than $5. So in my opinion, it's not worth getting a more expensive watch just for the band. But yeah, I think that what they're trying to do is they're trying to make their most elite watches like over $10,000 to compete against companies like Rolex, and people wear their watches as a statement of basically how rich they are. But I don't know how well that's going to work, because a Rolex, if you were to buy now and 10 years ago, it's about the same. But Apple is probably going to update their watch every year and have new models, new ones with the camera. So if you buy a $10,000 Apple Watch today and you wait 5 years from now, okay, the only price difference is like, so basically the price that's going to stay the same is, or increase maybe a little bit, is the price of gold. But besides that, the technology is old, so people aren't really going to think of that. They're going to think of it as an obsolete watch. Unlike a Rolex, where if you buy it, it's still going to be 10 years from now. Well, honestly, 10 years from now, Rolex is probably going to make smartwatches. But the point is that I don't think that they can rightly price watches this high without, because it's less of an investment, because down the road it is pretty much guaranteed to be worth less, unlike a lot of jewelry which people think of as an investment because it will be worth more over time. Anyways, that concludes this video. Please let me know your thoughts on this event by commenting below. And for more videos like this, feel free to like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and goodbye.